Mastercard reported a better-than-expected profit for the third quarter on Thursday as consumers encouraged by economic stability boosted their spending. Shares of the payments processor opened nearly 3% higher to hit an all-time high following the results. But shares then fell nearly 3% in morning trading after the company disclosed that the European Commission had sought documents tied to a broader investigation into alleged anti-competitive behavior in the European Union. Mastercard said it was cooperating with the request. On the earnings conference call, company executives said the business continues to benefit from healthy U.S. consumer confidence and moderating inflation, while confidence in Europe continues to improve. Cross-border volume, a gauge of travel demand that tracks spending on cards outside the country of their issue, climbed 18% compared with last year. Meanwhile, the value of transactions processed on Mastercard's network also grew by double digits. An analyst told Reuters the company deserves a higher valuation based on its growth prospects. Mastercard's results come the same day the U.S. Commerce Department said consumer spending rose more than expected in September and was higher than originally reported in August.
Stellantis endured a bumpy ride in the third quarter as revenue fell 27%. The automaker blamed reduced shipments and lower pricing power. It posted revenues of $35.8 billion, which slightly beat analyst expectations. The better-than-expected results pleased investors and shares rose 2.4% on Thursday. Stellantis said shipments fell just over a fifth to 1.17 million vehicles and cited gaps in the product lineup as the main driver of the decline. But the company said it was still on track to launch approximately 20 new models this year. It also said inventory reduction in the US is running at a faster rate than expected. The auto giant wants to fix bloated inventories and poor commercial performance that led to its profit warning last month. Stellantis' specific problems have combined with broader struggles for Western automakers. They include soft global demand, especially for electric vehicles, and tech transition challenges. They also face more competition from Chinese rivals. Europe's biggest automaker Volkswagen is assessing plans to shut at least 3 factories in Germany. It's also weighing whether to lay off tens of thousands of staff. Stellantis shares have lost about 40% of their value this year. The auto giant confirmed Thursday its recently reduced full-year results guidance after it posted a 40% decline in adjusted operating income in the first half. Shell had a third quarter to remember, while rival Total Energies endured one it'd rather forget. London-based Shell reported Thursday third quarter profits hit $6 billion during the period. It beat forecasts by 12% as weaker oil refining and trading results were offset by higher LNG sales. But French major Total saw net income hit by a 3-year low over the same quarter. It fell to $4.1 billion as the firm was hit by collapsing refining margins and upstream outages. Adjusted net income was down 37% from a year earlier. It was also down close to 13% from the previous quarter and missed analyst expectations. Global refining margins have dropped sharply in recent months and have hurt energy majors. That's due to weaker economic activity and the startup of several new refineries in Asia and Africa. Oil prices also fell by 17% over the quarter, piling on further pressure. Thursday's results followed a disappointing update from BP earlier this week. The British giant reported a 30% drop in Q3 profit, hitting its lowest in almost 4 years. BP was also weighed down by weaker refining and oil trading.
Mastercard reported a better-than-expected profit for the third quarter on Thursday as consumers encouraged by economic stability boosted their spending. Shares of the payments processor opened nearly 3% higher to hit an all-time high following the results. But shares then fell nearly 3% in morning trading after the company disclosed that the European Commission had sought documents tied to a broader investigation into alleged anti-competitive behavior in the European Union. Mastercard said it was cooperating with the request. On the earnings conference call, company executives said the business continues to benefit from healthy U.S. consumer confidence and moderating inflation, while confidence in Europe continues to improve. Cross-border volume, a gauge of travel demand that tracks spending on cards outside the country of their issue, climbed 18% compared with last year. Meanwhile, the value of transactions processed on Mastercard's network also grew by double digits. An analyst told Reuters the company deserves a higher valuation based on its growth prospects. Mastercard's results come the same day the U.S. Commerce Department said consumer spending rose more than expected in September and was higher than originally reported in August. U.S. stocks fell across the board Thursday after Microsoft and Meta platforms highlighted growing artificial intelligence costs that could hit their earnings. The Dow dropped nearly 1%, the S&P 500 lost nearly 2%, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq slid nearly 3%. All of the Magnificent Seven mega-cap technology stocks finished in the red, with Microsoft the biggest loser, down 6%, while Meta was off 4%. Summit Place Financial Advisors President Liz Miller calls the group fully valued, but continues to see long-term potential.
I don't think this changes our outlook or the enthusiasm for AI. I'm going to call it a little bit of a course adjustment. All of these companies are established, strong companies. They're used to giving us quarterly earnings. And what they really said is, we're on track, we're taking steps, but maybe it's going to take a little longer than you thought for us to be able to give you data on the revenue streams that follow. When we look at the stocks themselves and what they're down today, they're down just a little bit from the huge strength they had earlier in the year. So I'm going to just call it a slight course adjustment.
After the market closed, Mag 7 member Apple beat Wall Street sales and profit expectations for its fiscal fourth quarter, bolstered by strong early sales of the iPhone 16. Another member of the club, Amazon, also posted quarterly revenue and earnings that topped forecasts, setting up a potential bounce back in shares Friday. On the economic front, a key inflation measure came in roughly in line with expectations, while consumer spending increased a little more than expected. After the data, traders stuck to bets for a 25 basis point interest rate reduction at the Federal Reserve's meeting next week.
Could a bioherbicide lift the witchweed curse from Kenya's farms? Struggling against a parasitic plant that nearly wiped out her crops, farmer Catherine Wanjala found a lifeline that turned her maize yields around. Wanjala's small maize farm in western Kenya was suffering. Her crops would stop growing and her field was peppered with the lilac flowers of witchweed. She was unable to produce enough to feed her 3 children regularly.
I used to apply fertilizer to my maize plantation 3 times each season, but upon reaching knee height, the plantation was ravaged by purple witchweed, causing poor maize yields. With tears in her eyes, my mother-in-law had warned me against planting maize in this region.
Then she started coating her maize seeds in a fungal bioherbicide. Her maize harvest jumped 675%. Witchweed causes an estimated $7 to $14 billion of damage to farms in sub-Saharan Africa every year, studies show. And while chemical pesticides help farmers grow more intensively, they can accumulate in soils and waterways, causing major biodiversity loss. The solution? Kicha We Kill, a bioherbicide made by the social enterprise Toothpick. It was launched commercially in Kenya last year and is made of a naturally occurring fungus that has been engineered to help kill the witchweed. Research scientist Louise Kioko says the crop harms witchweed, also known as striga, but doesn't cause any harm to farmers or the local ecosystem.
In scientific terms, we say that it's host-specific. And to add on, it was isolated from a wilting striga in the soil. So when we take it back to the soil, it's gone back to its natural habitat, so the ecosystem is not affected.
The World Food Programme's Innovation Unit has funded trials to help scale up the crop. It hopes the fungus can begin to reach the estimated 1.4 million hectares of land plagued by witchweed across sub-Saharan Africa. Meanwhile, Wanjala's children are back in school full-time and no longer miss meals.
It might just make space exploration a little more sustainable. Scientists in Japan are set to test the world's first wooden satellite. The LignoSat was developed by a team from Kyoto University and home builder Sumitomo Forestry. It will be launched next week atop a SpaceX rocket bound for the International Space Station. Former Japanese space shuttle astronaut Takao Doi was part of the Kyoto team.
If we can use materials that humans can make and bring them to outer space, people will be able to create a sustainable society. Therefore, we want to find out if wood can be used in space or not, and that's why we made this wooden satellite.
LignoSat, named after the Latin word for wood, will be released from the space station in the coming weeks. It will orbit for 6 months, testing how well the material can withstand the extreme environment. Forest science professor Koji Murata says wood can actually perform well in space, as there's nothing there to make it rot or catch fire.
The wood used for the satellite comes from a type of magnolia tree, Japanese hinoki. Traditionally, it is easy to process and resistant to shattering, which is why it is typically used for things like the scabbards of Japanese swords and the blades of Japanese wooden sandals due to its strength.
Wood also offers benefits at the end of the satellite's life, when it will burn up harmlessly in the Earth's atmosphere. Traditional satellites burn up too, but give off a shower of polluting metal particles when they do. Looking further ahead, Doi sees the satellite as a step towards a bigger dream. He wants to plant trees and build timber houses on the Moon and Mars.